One of the two most important decisions you'll ever make in your life is who you marry. And then after that, after you've asked her to marry you, then you just be quiet for the rest of your life and you'll be happy. Otherwise, just let things kind of fly by, you know?
When Grandpa was, I think he was less than 2 years old, he just got really sick, and it was mastoid ear infection. And at that time, they didn't have any way to treat it. And being he was so little too, they didn't give his parents very much chance that he would live, and he was their first baby. But his dad gave him a blessing, and they had so much faith that they just left and went away while the operation was going on to come back for it afterwards. And he recovered, he did well. They had to take the bone out from behind his ear. Within 2 weeks, he had it. The other ear got mastoid, so this time they just said no way, because it's just infected his whole body. But of course they did the same thing, and he survived, but he had just horrible, horrible headaches. I mean, earaches. And he always had to wear a cap everywhere he went, and the kids were always asking him to look at the holes behind his ears and everything. He said he remembered his dad coming in nearly every night and giving him a blessing, and then his earache could stop. And he said he could just see him come in his garments and lay down by him. And one night he came in and he said, "LJ, we're gonna get this stopped." And so he gave him a blessing that he would never have the earache again if he would live the commandments and do as his Heavenly Father wanted him to do. And so his earache stopped. He still had to wear a hat and be really careful, growing up in his early years. But he said every time that he'd kind of feel any sensation in his ear, he was afraid that he had done something wrong. And so he was real careful, always. And he lived such a good life. He's wonderful. He always has had these scars behind his ears, and you can just put your fingers back in there and feel those where they've taken that out. But he never wanted to wear a hat after he didn't have to anymore. I think they had to on their missions. I think they were still wearing a hat some, but I could never get him to hardly put a hat on, no matter what. I hate hats. That's his answer. He didn't have his hearing aids, though, for years. He could hear fine. I mean, he was probably 60 or so when he got hearing aids, yeah.
I had a lot of friends. I just really enjoyed, I had an exciting time growing up. Some things I did, they weren't terrible, but I'm not going to talk about them, I guess.
Anyway, they had a little group of boys. I mean, we in high school too. I don't know if they do that very much anymore. We called ourselves the Big Seven. I don't know what they called themselves. They thought they were neat. They would go up in the attic and play cards and just goof off. And anyway, one of his friends was the star athlete in the school, and one day they got caught. He was really upset the day they got caught because they were so concerned about the athlete. He said, "Now don't hurt yourself getting down on the ladder," and the principal did and everything because they were going to have a game soon, within a couple of days, and he didn't want it. But the other boys got disciplined, but he did, for going up there, because they had it at their little clubhouse, and I guess they did it for, I don't know if it was years or months, but they'd just go up there and have a good time. But they were good friends, always. And those friends have been friends his whole life. Most of them are all gone now. We went on trips with them. They all moved to St. George, dying one at a time. But every Wednesday we got together with them for lunch. the ones that were left. I mean, it was just a real companionship. All really, really good people, just wonderful friends he had. But he was vice president of this little group, and they all had a cup with their name on, and I don't know if everyone did or just the officers. And I've got that cup he always treasured.
There were two of us in the first grade. My aunt was my teacher. And I don't ever remember really having lessons. The kids listened to us reading that. And then they closed the school down when I was in second grade, and we bused 5 miles to Mount Emmons, and I went there until 5th grade, and then they started busing in 7 towns, and they made up Altamont. And so from 5th grade until 12th grade, I went to school there, and that was so fun because we had the biggest class. We ended up in 7th grade with 48 kids, and I think we graduated with 35 or 38. Some of them moved away and quit or whatever, but it was so fun because I got to be cheerleader, got to be queen's attendants of a lot of things. We had a wonderful band and a choir, and so you're in everything because they need you. And so our band did good, though. We went even to Salt Lake. We got a great guy from BYU that came out his first year out of college, taught band and choir, and he had us looking so good. I think we got 4th place in Salt Lake at the 24th of July parade. But we competed all over. We did great, and it was just fun. Oh my! And yearbook. Got out of school to go sell things, advertisements for the yearbook. Just really, really involved in school.
Always in the limelight. We're cheerleader, and FHA attended 2 or 3 times, and I represented our school and went to Hotel Utah once to a big FHA convention and met a lot of people. And it was the first time I was staying with other girls, and I had black hair and eyebrows and stuff, and I'd never seen anybody without eyebrows, and the girls had washed their faces and they had no eyebrows, and it was really fascinating to me. I still remember that. I thought, oh my gosh, they look so different without makeup on. I had a lot of fun with a lot of people. I always liked people, liked to go out. I loved to dance. I loved to just have a good time. And things in my little town were, we had the 7 towns to make one school. I usually went to 2 or 3 junior proms from the other schools every year too. It was just fun. I just had a good time. I just liked to have fun and was friendly, I guess.
I was going to BYU, and LJ just got out of the service, and he had been out for about a week. And one of his friends from Tremont, I was living with 4 girls. We were living in family living. There were 6 of us, 1 girl from Ogden and 4 girls from Las Vegas. And his friend had been stationed in Las Vegas in the Army, and so he brought LJ and I think 2 other boys down to BYU with him to visit my roommates. And so that's where we first met. And then LJ enrolled at BYU the next quarter, but he never asked me out. And he had a Cadillac, and he used to park it there in the parking for buildings 1 and 2. I lived in Broadbent Hall, and he was always out there just cleaning his car and washing it, and as eyes go by, he was high and whatever, but we never dated at BYU at all. I had 2 jobs. So I worked at First Security Bank running the elevator, and was kind of a security person to check everyone in after 6 o'clock and take them where they were going, had them sign in and sign out. Anyway, I met him on the way walking from Lester Park to First Security Park. And so he talked to me, and we decided to, he wanted to come and visit me at the bank and take me home after work. So that was our first date. He took me home from First Security Bank.
When I met Grandpa, I was at going to school at Brigham Young University, and we were living in family living. And he had just got out of the Army, like no more than a week or 10 days. And he came with his friend to BYU to visit the girls from Las Vegas. And he had a load of boys. I mean, there were 4 or 5 of them in the car, I guess. They all came to our apartment. I thought he was really cute. And then he started BYU the next quarter. This was in about probably November, December, that the first time I saw him. We lived in Brimham apartment, and it was apartment 2, and all the Tremont girls were in apartment 1. I mean, that, when it was in the family living buildings down there. And we had the same parking lot, and he was cool because he had a Cadillac. His dad had a Cadillac, so they had a black Cadillac and a white Cadillac. Sometimes he'd bring one or the other, when he'd go home. He would be out there washing his car, and that's about the only time that we talked a little bit and say, hi, how are you, whatever. He was always over at Building 1. So I didn't ever date him that year. And then after that year, he just stayed home and did business with his dad. It took over for his dad because his dad was too ill. But I met him that summer. I worked at Lester Park as a recreation leader in the day, and then 3 nights a week I worked at First Security Bank as elevator operator and kept track of who came in the building and who left the building. They had to sign in and sign out for me, and I took them to their floor. So I was walking home from Lester Park, and he saw me and said, where are you going? He recognized me. I said, I'm going to work. And so he said, where? And I said, the First Security Bank. That was in Ogden. So he said, well, do you want to ride? And I said, okay. And he took me over there, and then he said, what are you going to do after work? And I said, just go home. And he said, well, could we go out after you get off? And I was happy because I always had to ride the bus home. I mean, I never had a car or anything. I always thought he was cute. Well, I had looked out the window and watched him wash his car and thought, oh, he's so handsome and cute. I'd like to marry somebody like that, or him. And so then we just started dating all the time after that. And then I went back to school, and he didn't go back to school, so he had to come to Provo to see me then. He went to California, he and one of his buddies on a motorcycle, and they got a job in California, and they were doing construction. And he took me back to his boss's house, and after we were married, we even stayed there with him a few days. I mean, and it was a relative of the guy I went on the motorcycle with, and I don't remember his name, but I did meet his uncle and aunt. LJ always thought a lot of them. They were nice people.
Were you guys dating other people?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was or not, but I was. I had about 3 or 4 guys I was going with. I liked them all. My mother used to be so mad at me. I mean, she'd say, oh, Lajean. Well, I said, well, they're all so nice. I mean, they were just nice boys. If they asked me out, I'd say sure. So finally I said, LJ, why don't you ask me to go steady with you?
I said, why don't you ask me to go steady? Because you're always calling me, and I always had a date. He said, why don't you ask me to go steady? So you bought me a ring, and you gave me a ring the next week. Well, about a couple of weeks later, maybe.
Yeah, I remember how I got pregnant.
I never did like to lie. I mean, if I didn't have a date and they were nice people, I just liked to go. And so I said, and then I can tell them I'm going steady, then I can go with you, because he was driving down there all the time. And so I said, okay. We'll go, you can tell him we're going steady then. So that's what happened. Then we got engaged after that. Oh, when we were on Christmas Eve, and we had been going steady for a while then, and he handed me a ring box, and he said, now don't take this unless you really want it. And I said, oh, well, I really want it. And a piece of coal fell out.
I had this ring box, and I found this little piece of coal that would just fit in it. So we were driving down, I think, Washington Boulevard, and I handed her this box and,
Really romantic, you know.
yeah, and said, "This is for you."
But don't take it unless you really want it. Right?
I guess so.
Yeah, you
Anyway,
did.
she didn't say a lot right after she opened that box.
I didn't think it was funny at all. It was Christmas Eve, however, too.
Well, I thought if I bought it for her for Christmas, I'd only have to buy one present. So that's why I got her that ring at Christmas Eve.
And then he used to always say, you probably wouldn't want a very big diamond, would you? Because, you know, your hands are pretty small. I was pretty little then. And I said, no, that doesn't make any difference how big your finger is. I thought that was so rude. He was always saying that before he got me one, you know.
He thought he was cool. He always felt bad about it, though. He always said 100 times, every time he'd see someone get on their knees on the TV or whatever, and will you marry me and all this, he said, I sure shouldn't have done that. And I said, well, you sure were sure of yourself. I should have said no, but I was happy to get it. I was real happy to get it when he gave it to me.
We got married in the Logan Temple, and one reason for that, I had got sealed to my parents when I was 5 in the Salt Lake Temple, but LJ's dad was not very well, and that was easier for him to go up to the Logan because they lived in Tremont. And we had a neat ceremony, but something strange happened that day. My dad got lost from us, so all through the whole session he wasn't with us, but he was there to witness us getting married. And that was really a traumatic thing for my dad because he had not been to the temple since I was 5. And then being lost from us the whole time, I knew my mother must have really been way more nervous than I was about it because he had been going to church and working hard to get to go because he didn't go to church very much. He was a cattle buyer and he was always away on Sunday and at the auctions.
Well, I had, like I said, I had these boyfriends, and anyway, we got engaged, and this one that I had gone through, dated when I was going to high school. He was from Roosevelt. He was at the U in dentistry school, and I'd seen him off and on, but not a lot, and he just heard I was engaged, I think, probably. He called me and wanted me to, just wanted to see me, and so he said he was a pilot too. He'd got his airplane, and he said he wanted to take me for a ride in his airplane. I called LJ. LJ was in New York on some business, and I said, Dale Larson wants to take me in his airplane for a ride, and he just wants to talk to me, and then he'll take me over to the school and take me. So it'll be early in the morning. He'll just drop me off at school, and then he'll go back to Salt Lake because he's still in school. I said, is that okay with you? He said, sure, that's fine. He was pretty easygoing. So I said, okay. So I did. Anyway, he just asked me to give my ring back and told me he really liked me and everything. And he said he'd always planned that we'd get married. Of course, I hadn't, but he had said he had. I just said, oh, no, I can't do that. I told him I'd marry him. So he just walked me up to school, and so some of the teachers saw him and said, oh, we get to see who you're going to marry, and I just let it go at that. I thought that didn't sound very good. I was going to get married in a month, and I'm going with somebody. But, my husband-to-be was perfectly fine with it. I liked them all, but I never felt like I wanted to be intimate with them, and I did him. And I didn't ever be till after we were married, of course. But it's just a different feeling, and I just loved him. I adored him. Well, then I'll testify to it in the room. He was just a kind person. He just would, I couldn't imagine when I would hear about men hitting their wives or being mean to them. Sometimes I've even pounded on his chest, LJ. But he would not fight with you. He would just walk out of the room or whatever, but he would not yell back or anything. He was just an extra kind person. Just really was. I was so fortunate to have him as a husband. I really was. I knew it. I always knew that.
Wartime experiences. Oh gosh, I had some great wartime experiences. The Korean War would probably have been lost if it wasn't for me.
Sure.
No, I went in the military during the Korean War, and
Right after your mission, how
yeah,
many
right
weeks?
after I can't remember how many weeks, but anyway, right after that, and went to basic training in Camp Roberts, California. First we were up in Northern California, and I got pneumonia up there because they didn't have the uniforms to issue, so a lot of us got pneumonia, but I remember going to the hospital and I thought, oh, here I am in the hospital. This is a better place than where I've been. But anyway, the first morning in that hospital, some old gruff nurse comes along and says, out of bed, mop the floor around your bed. We had to clean up the hospital. Here I could hardly move and had me mop. I'll tell you, if you weren't sick, you didn't want to be in that hospital. Anyway, I learned a lot about the Army at that point. Then we went into basic training, and I enjoyed basic training. I really enjoyed the military. I learned a lot in the military. I wish all my children had been in the military for a year or 2 years. It was just a great growing experience, and I learned a lot. Had a lot of great experiences there, and I was shipped to Germany instead of Korea. Most of our training company went to Korea. A lot of them didn't return. And I just felt fortunate that I was sent to Germany. There, I made one mistake. I saved all my leave time instead of going out and learning more about Europe. But we had some church activities, and I was always involved in the church activities and couldn't hardly find a way to get away. I did travel around once and went to Copenhagen, Denmark, and once I went to 3-day pass to France, but that was about all the traveling I did while I was in the military. But later on, I traveled most of Europe.
Grandpa had gone to school. First he started out at Utah State. I don't know how many quarters he went. Then he went to the U. Then he went on his mission. A week after he went on his mission, they weren't letting the boys that age go. They were drafting them all. But right after he got his mission call, he got the call to go in the service. So he thought he was going to be going in the service, and then I guess they asked if he could just delay it. And so they said if he would come in a week after he got home from his mission. So each break, so he went to the U, to the university, and then to BYU, and then to Weber State after we were married. But he didn't ever graduate. He just was. I said, well, he tried them all out.
You know, everybody used to say, what do you do for a living? And I never could tell them because I didn't know. But I just, I always had my own business.
He did everything. He just worked hard. I mean, Grandpa was selling cookware before we got married. His dad had a cookware company. He met a lot of girls, so I'm now that reminds me, I'm sure he went out. Because he always said he saved the best looking one or the nicest one to go for his last appointment. And so I'm sure that's what he probably was thinking with me. He probably thought, well, I'll just work and I'll take her out and I'll sell her some pots and pans. I don't know. Didn't work out that way for him.
But I sold water softeners, and then I got my own water softener company and cleaned carpets, and then I got my own carpet cleaning business, and we had franchise and had people buy our machines from us and
cook dinners for people
cook dinners
with cookware.
I think I spent more time selling pots and pans than anything else. And I know more about cooking than almost anybody in this house, but I never get to experience any of it.
Now, you're supposed to say positive things. Everyone knows that I cook.
I know, but you don't use the right kind of cookware
Because you
anymore.
gave it away. You gave my cookware away. You lent it to someone. I
I know,
never
but
got it back.
got
I
it-
cooked that way for a lot of years,
I know.
waterless. But
No, without water. Now she puts water in the potatoes and boils them just like anybody else. I can't believe it.
after all that training, you know, but I learned to cook really early.
She is a good cook. There's no
I
doubt
had to
about
make bread from the time I was probably 7 or 8 years old. I think I made bread. And when my mom got sick early, when she's 37, and I had to come home from BYU and make bread every weekend for my dad. He didn't think he could eat any kind of bread that wasn't homemade. And
that. Been in the pawn shop business, and that's kind of an interesting business, and what you call bridge loans. But we loaned some money to some fellows who owned 3 pawn shops. And they started gambling on the football games.
good elders.
Yeah, they were members of the church. One sang in the tabernacle choir, and the other was an elders quorum president. But they got hooked on these football games, and they went bankrupt. And the court gave me the pawn shops, and so that's how I got in the pawn shop business. But my son Mark was just getting out of college at that time, and he liked the pawn shop business. And so we were in it for a lot of years and still kind of hang on to it a little bit.
LJ was always so polite and so gentlemanly, and just very, very nice. And everybody liked him because he's so nice, and he was that way our whole marriage. And I always said, my dad was a nice guy and loved him a lot and everything, but he was not an easy man to live with. I think men had more ego. I guess all over the world, men have a lot of ego, though. Still in other countries, but everything was built around my dad in the home, and so he was perfection, wanted everything. And I never felt like we ever pleased him quite enough. And my gosh, we worked really hard. My parents were married so young, and he was in the Depression, and he got 50 cents a day and took the rest out in trade at my grandpa's store. He worked for my grandpa. And so he had to, he saved up all his lunch money, the 50 cents a day, and started cattle. And he ended up being a cattle buyer, and he bought our home for us in St. George. He worked so hard and made a lot of money, and he got married while he was 17 years old. That's pretty, my mom was 17 and 18 when they got married, and they lived with my grandma and grandpa for 2 years. But he was always kind of a hard taskmaster, and money was really, really tight. But then when he started making money being a cattle buyer, he owned part of the Salt Lake stockyards, and he did well. But he still never wanted to spend money. He would go and pay for my college tuition and my room and that, like, for the year. But I never had a cent of spending money unless my grandma or someone sent some. He knew I had my food and my whatever, and and my mother would try, but he was real hard with the money things. So I really learned how to not spend money. And we lived on the farm, and we didn't have a store within 15 miles, so I learned to cook and everything really young because we all worked hard. I told my parents that they worked us so hard, that's why we didn't grow very tall. Because you only grow when you sleep, and I was serious. So I said, I died and went to heaven when I married LJ. He was so nice. Just made me feel so good all the time. I guess that's part of it. He just made me feel loved and cherished, I guess you'd say. He always did. He was a great husband. He was really strong on education. He only went to the 8th grade because that was pretty common then. They just had to stop and work, and he really instilled that in us, and he loved to read, and he had a lot of really good qualities. I mean, he took us fishing, and when we'd go on vacation, it was fun. We did a lot of camping and fishing up in the mountains because we live close to the mountains. Upalco's going up to Moon Lake. It's just, it was just something we did. And his family, a lot of them lived in California. I mean, they had come from Provo, but the ones that got married, they went, some of them went to California. We always went to California every year. And he liked to go down into Mexico just to look around. I mean, on a trip, I think your dad tried it. I mean, I think some of the kids have tried this with their kids. He would give us money for our food for the trip and have us use it. And I had one little brother, Dexter, that he wouldn't eat, so Dad would finally, because he was frugal, save his money, so Dad would finally say, okay, I'll buy your meal this time. And so then he'd just load up, but no, Dad had a lot of really good qualities, and people liked him a lot. He would sing and around the bonfire and do things. Vacations were real fun with him, but he just worked so hard and was under a lot of pressure because he would buy the cattle. He would go out in a field and maybe buy 50 and have to guess their weight to know what he was going to get out of them when he got back to sell them at the stockyards. And that's what he did. He'd buy them and then every week and then go to the stockyards. He was really good at that. And my brother Noel, I mean, we had truck drivers and everything too. But he could just do that. And Noel said he's the smartest man he ever knew. He always thought he was really good with figures and really smart. But it was kind of annoying because everybody he would always be guessing our weight. or people come in and say, I bet you weigh such and such. I mean, that was when he was in his 90s, more. But he was a good guy, a real great guy. He said, do you think I'll live to 100? And I said, do you think you will? And he said, I think I will. I said, you probably will then. But he really liked to be with people. Maybe I get that from him because I love to be around people and not be alone so much. I always felt bad because they said he was too good to have home care. He was at a facility, but we moved to St. George to just be not by him and visited him every day and every night tucked him into bed and whatever. Well, I hadn't been back to my Roy home. We hadn't been here for a while, and I just said, wow, if he's too good for health care, I'm going to go home for 2 or 3 days and see my kids and the family, Of course, I was 70 by then, whatever. But anyway, and so I went home, and Dexter went, he would go cowboy, and Dexter was really good. He was like a horse whisperer, and he just did it because he liked it. He had a friend, and he'd help him with round up his cows and stuff. But he'd just go for the day, and he saw him that night. But I had talked to him twice during the day that he died, and he went down and ate dinner and everything. And Dexter came up to see him and to give him, the only medicine he took was for his asthma, and he had a breathing treatment at night and was giving him that, and he died within a minute. But I thought, I wonder if he got lonesome that day, because he'd always say, what would I ever do if I didn't have you kids? He really depended on seeing us and, loved us. We knew that a lot. LJ and I took him on rides and over to our house a lot and everything, but he had a girlfriend. He got a girlfriend. My mom died at 37. He remarried, and then Faye died too when she was 90. And he liked where he lived a lot. Oh, she was probably 95 or so. He didn't live too much longer after her. So he didn't go to church a lot after. He did when they were young, but then when he got to the senior living place, He was the first one to every meeting, and he paid his tithing, and he kept saying, I owe the Lord, I really do. And I think Ida Mae helped him a lot with that, because he married Faye, and she wasn't LDS. She's a really nice lady, but she never did ever join the church. And LJ was always saying, Faye, is this the year? After he married Faye, he didn't go to church a lot. But he did after but he did, yeah, when he started going again, and I was glad of that. Everybody liked him, all the nieces and nephews. He had a 90th birthday party, and every single one came from California and everything. All of his nieces and nephews were there. And they all loved Uncle Earl, so that was good, yeah. I did too. He was very handsome. I always was hoping that, I just think, I hope they think he's my husband when I was older, when I'd answer the door, because he looked so young. I thought he was, he was a very handsome man. You didn't see him handsome because he lost all his hair. You get old like we do, but he was very good looking. He was a really good businessman, both of them. His dad was a very good businessman, and he was a manager for J.C. Penney store in Tremont, is what he did. But then he sold on the side, and he imported diamonds and different things from Germany and Europe. And in fact, he could have got the Volkswagen dealership. He and LJ went back, and they brought about 3 back into the United States. They brought the Carmagia and couple of others, and anyway, they decided against it, which probably wasn't a good decision. But anyway, he just taught him business. He's very honest, always a tithe payer. LJ would never go without paying his tithing. He always wanted to pay too much. He said, you can't pay too much tithing. If honey kid, he didn't always pay too much. He was religious. He went to church and everything, but he never was like, I shouldn't say never, because I don't know what he did before, but his health was really poor. He had arthritis so bad in his back and everything that by the time I knew him, he couldn't even come to our session to get married. He came to the temple sealing, but they used to do them both the same day. So LJ came by himself for that. Oh, and my dad came and got lost onto another session. He hadn't been back to the temple since I was 5. He was sealed to my mother when I was 5 and Noel was 4, and Dexter wasn't born. He got lost and got in a session ahead. That was sad, and Mother was worrying about him constantly. I know, because he wasn't in the session, wondering what had happened to him.
I do like to travel, as long as I don't have to be away from home more than 3 or 4 or 5 days. And I really don't have any hobbies. I wish I'd like to fish, but it takes so long in between catching them. I just don't enjoy it. I do like to...
Loves the computer. That's your hobby now.
Is that what it is?
Because
I'm not very good at it.
I have
I'll tell
a
you
hard
that.
time getting him to bed. He'd rather play
That's
with the
because I'm not very
computer.
good at it. It takes me a long time to do whatever I have to do.
And he likes to think, how can I make money, and read books on making money. He loves to think and
You're
grow
supposed to
rich
say,
and
I
all
spend
those.
all my time
And church.
doing church
You
work.
do. You don't have time for hobbies, because he's been in a bishopric forever until he was bishop and district. You've always had a really big church job, but right now, just got released Sunday.
Well, when he'd get the little kids in the car, he'd always say, oh, I am so lucky, because I have a big bird that comes and picks me up, and I get to just fly all over. I can see you, I can go wherever I want, and it's just a wonderful adventure. Sometime I'd really like to take you with me. And they'd be just so excited. Well, Grandpa, tell me, or Dad, tell me, about this bird. But a lot of times it was my little nephew that was 5 when we got married, or 4, about 4, I guess. And we loved him. His name was Bert Taylor, and he would LJ was always telling him stories. He just liked to tell stories. Tell the little kids that there was a little man in the refrigerator, and when they opened the door, he turned on the light. That's who turned on the light. He said, so if you do it real fast, you might catch him sometime, because he always jumps back in his little place when the door gets opened. And he had a name for him, and at every home it was a different name, you know, for the little grandkids, the man in the fridge. Just like he did that with me on my engagement. He thought that was funny then, you know. Later he got pretty docile. But he wasn't as fun at the end. He had memory problems. Well, he really liked to have a toothpick in his mouth. And he'd pick on his teeth, and he was talking. Blah, blah, blah. And I just say, don't do that. Take that out. It looks like a cigarette. I bet if you were a smoker, you'd be a real cigarette smoker, wouldn't you? Because you have to have that in your mouth all the time. And Lajean, take it out. And then I try not to let it bother me. But, I mean, you know, it was just when we were alone and stuff. But he loved to chew on toothpicks. I bought a great big bottle for him. I put it in the car for him. So he'd never be without, he'd say, I need a toothpick, you know, we were out to eat or anything. So, yeah, and you talk with... That and ketchup. He had to have ketchup all the time on everything. Everybody just passed the ketchup to LJ. He smothered it in ketchup. I said, what? Just taste it first. See how it really tastes. That was the only two annoying things that I can think of. I'm sure I annoyed him in a lot of ways, too.
I feel like I don't have a vacation unless I can read a book, and a lot of times that's on the plane or traveling or whatever, but I love to do that. And then I love gardening. I guess it's from growing up, and we had two gardens, one down the field. We grew everything. We grew everything, even our cattle and our chickens and whatever that we ate. Our closest grocery store was, a little one was like 6 miles away, and the one where we shopped was 15 miles away. And so we did a lot of canning, and I love canning, I love cooking, and like I say, I love gardening, I love quilting. I've never been a seamstress, only I do love to quilt.
I wouldn't have been known if I hadn't been in Daughters of Utah Pioneers. I started when I was really pretty young, in my late 20s. I was really involved in that, and then I got put in the company DUP, and I was, well, also we had the museum in Ogden, the Daughters of Utah Pioneer Museum. And I worked in there, and then I was a docent. We had meetings, we had a board meeting. So I started being a docent every Tuesday. They just had the board members be the docents, and so that a docent, you know, what a docent is, it's you just go at the museum and show people through the museum and tell them about all the artifacts in there. And I just got really involved with that and on the board, and we had to have the museum redone, the electricity in it, because there was a big problem. So we got a bid, and they gave us a bid, and everything was donation. There's no pay or anything. And so we had a little donation box, but that didn't do much. And I'm sure, I remember the city helped out paying things. And then the bill came, and it was, 10 times more. And we were all just like, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Anyway, I came up with an idea that, that I had a son that was a lawyer, and he could write them a letter and tell them, that, they had bid us one thing, we'd have no money, whatever. And then my husband delivered it, and he's very, very good with everybody. He was very good with people. People He was always such a gentleman and so nice to everybody. So the bill got dismissed. The lady that nominated me was over that museum. I think that was one reason. Another reason, I think, was because we had a Nauvoo boy that lived with us, the Indian boy, when the church asked for that. And so we had that and had him for over a year. And it's a real miracle how that happened, that he went. But he came back. We enjoyed him. He was always wild, kind of wild little kid. He was 12, and he was little. He was short. But everybody in the school was afraid of him, and the mothers would call that he was, their kids were afraid to walk home from school because William would maybe beat up on him and everything. But he was a pretty good little kid, and he was really interesting, though. I mean, at first, he'd take all the food on the table with the first passing and just dump it all on his plate like he wasn't going to get any. So we had a lot of adjustments to make, and he'd try to take things, to take him. So I guess he hadn't had much, If I had things out for the kids to go to school or whatever, he'd take their things. So he could maybe send them back to his family, I guess, to his little sister. But we got along with him fine, and I was sad when he left. And then the second year, he came back, and I don't know what had happened, but sometimes they say you're brown on the outside but white on the inside, and tease them because they had gone to live with white people. Anyway, he was just really obnoxious, and he would not do anything I said. I mean, he didn't even want to walk by me, be by me, and I took him to buy school clothes. He didn't bring anything back. We bought all his school clothes the year before, and he'd just go pile a bunch of stuff on, for me to buy. Then one day I read a letter, and it said, I'd ask him to mow the lawn or do anything. He would not do one thing that I asked him, and he said, just anything you want, you just call and you write and tell me, and I'll get it for you. And he said he hated me, and that I was trying to get him to mow the lawn and things like that. But I'm not going to do anything for them, but I'll get all I can. And I read that letter. He left it sitting there, and I was so upset. Remember, I got a ticket that day I was going to the doctor that day, and I just through Washington Terrace, and I got a ticket. I was just well, I can't take this anymore. I thought, I just can't. I was just praying about it. I said, I just can't live like this. I can't do this. It had been about 2 months it had been going on. That day I got home, and they called and said that his mother wants him to come home. And I said, thank you, Heavenly Father. I had just was up to here with it. It was just causing me to be sick almost, worrying about him. But anyway, that was just one thing. And then we had the missionaries for 3 years in our house. Just things like that kind of got around, that we're doing. And anyway, I just got nominated through that. And I was also Weber County. I was Weber County DUP company leader, so I was over 20 camps. A lot of it came from DUP, I think. And then they started a Roy camp and divided the 20 into 10 for Ogden area. It took in Ogden, all of Weber County, all that area, but Roy. And then I had been out for about 2 years. I was 3 years the first time. You could do it 3 years, and then they asked me to do Roy, so then I was that for 3 years. And I think just all of that together, you kind of get known with people. Good deeds, I guess. I don't know. I grew up in a little house we didn't even have water for a while, but by the time I was about 5, we did, and had the outside. And I never did have a bedroom till I was moved to Ogden. And all the kids now have separate bedrooms and everything. They have to have everything so special. And so it doesn't mean as much, I guess. I just think you just have to love them and forgive them, and just always be on their side and let them know you love them, no matter what. You just have to feel that way. And that's the way I feel. And with my grandkids too, I just love them all, and I try not to judge. I've always tried not to judge people. And it's not easy, but I've said if I ever have a talent, it must be that I like everybody, because I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I just try to be positive. And I think anytime you're kind to people, and you honestly are, they can feel it and they'll love you. Just keep positive and know that things will work out. I feel like they will. We've got a long time in this next life to work out a lot of things. The Ogden Temple's special because it was the first temple that I ever worked in, and had to learn all of the covenants, whatever. You know, I mean, I'd been to the temple a lot, but, well, everybody's so nice. I mean, you just love them, and just got so much experience, and I got to be a trainer, you know, after I learned, and trained other workers, and, you know, did that too, and just got close to a lot of people, because it's not easy. And I love being in the temple. I love just going and work in serving or participating. Either way, I love to be there. The first temple I ever attended was the Salt Lake Temple, and I was only 5, and I can remember it vividly. I thought it was just a wonderful place to be. I mean, I was in with the kids playing, and the ladies were so nice, and I had long black braids in my. The ladies took out my braids and brushed my hair and made me feel like a princess, and had, you know, a pretty white dress on, and then I got to go in and be sealed to my parents, and I didn't really understand that at all. And my brother was 1 year younger than me, 1 year and 5 days, and he got sealed too. And he told everybody afterwards, Mom and Dad got married and Jean and I got married. So that was his experience. I think we were still probably in the sealing room. My grandma took one side of my hair and my mother took the other side, and they just braided it right up again. That kind of broke my heart, because I just thought I was looking so wonderful with that long flowing hair, but they had other ideas. And that's the things I remember the most about the temple, was playing in the playroom and getting my hair brushed. And I think I had my hair curled before I was in 7th grade about once or twice, and I can only really remember once, and my Aunt Drusilla put me in big rag rollers, or whatever they used to do with the rags, and oh my gosh, I thought that was so wonderful, just to have curly hair. I thought that was really cool.
First part of my mission was in Lubbock, Texas. That's where I went first. When we arrived at the mission, we got off. In those days it was the train, never the plane. We got off the train, went to the mission home, had dinner, and then they took us out into the middle of Houston, and we held a street meeting. And every one of us had to get up and bear our testimony in the middle of town on a street corner. I'll never forget that. I thought, I must have made a mistake come on this mission if I've got to stand up. And but it wasn't long until every weekend I was standing on a corner waving a Book of Mormon, talking to the top of my voice, telling those people they had to repent, you know. But anyway, it was, I hadn't been in Lubbock a short time, and they sent us to a little boom town, an oil boom town. They just struck a lot of oil over there. It was called Snyder, Texas. And there were 2 or 3 members. We started looking for the members of the church there to start a little Sunday school. There were probably 3 couples of us, or maybe 5 or 6 or 7 people at our Sunday school, held in somebody's home. It was sometimes a different home every Sunday. And knocked on doors, tracked day and night, and got a lot of turndowns. But I'd been a salesman, so I was used to that. Didn't bother me. And we lived in housing was hard to find. We lived in a little room. I guess it was about 15 by 15 that had an old gas stove in, and the shower. I did not know all the people I shared the bath with. I didn't have the slightest idea. Every time I went there, there was a stranger, you know. But anyway, one day I was looking at my shoes. I was laying on the bed looking at my shoes, and there was a cockroach chewing on my shoe, right on the rim of it. And I looked around the room, and at home I had a beautiful room, a nice room, always had the best. I guess I was spoiled, but I thought, how come I like this mission? I can't understand this. But it was the greatest experience. I'd like to go back on another mission because, and just be a proselyting missionary, because I didn't have a lot of chance to do that after leaving Snyder, Texas. I was called down into the mission home, and I was there for a long time. And then I went out as what they call traveling elders. You travel around with all the other, and work with all the other missionaries, and so you didn't really get to know the families really well. And then after that, I was what they call the presiding elder out in East Texas. And I did get to meet some families out there because I had my own area, but then each week I'd have to go around a different week and work with the different elders. So I think one of the greatest parts of a mission is just getting to meet the people, see their conversion, you make lifelong friends, and I didn't have the time I would like to have had doing that. But a mission is a great experience. If I had the choice of a college education or a mission, I could only have one or the other, it would definitely be a mission. And the two great experiences I've had in this life was marriage in the temple and going on a mission. And I wish that every one of these grandchildren right here could go on a mission. That's my wife's favorite necklace. If they could all go on a mission and be married in the temple. They don't know what a temple is, they're all too young. But it's the only place that the Lord has designated where if you are married there, you are married not only in this life, but in the life to come. And you'll have your family, not only in this life, but in the life to come. No one teaches that other than our prophet and the prophets of the past. And that's a true principle. And it's a principle that has to be abided by if you want your family. You have to do that. And I want all those grandchildren and all of my children in the next world. And I'm looking forward to that next world where we'll all be together.
He had a gallbladder operation. We had been serving in the Ogden mission in temple. We served for 8 years. And he served as the coordinator of the temple for 3 of those years. So we decided we wanted to go to Washington, D.C. to the temple on a temple mission. And we knew quite a few that had done that. So we were preparing for that, and we had sent in our mission papers. Then he had a gallbladder attack. He went in the hospital, and they had his gallbladder out, and it was just right before our 50th wedding anniversary. And so we said, we can go on the mission, but we can't go until after June 7th, 2006. We got the call, and then he had to go back in the hospital to get operated on again, because they said it was in a really dangerous place and it could even be fatal. He couldn't leave to go on the mission. So they operated again, and they couldn't get it. And so he was feeling pretty good, and we really wanted to go. And so we kept kind of urging them, can't we go, can't we go? And so finally, Dr. Archibald was his surgeon, and he said, well, if you'll promise, if you have any pain at all after you get there, that you'll rush right back. And because it could be fatal, it's a dangerous thing where it is. So we went on our mission. We And so we'd lost our housing where all the missionaries were, so we stayed in another apartment building. And there were 2 other missionaries and their wives that were in that same building. And about 3 or 4 days after we got there, he got the bad pain. So we still didn't know anybody, but we knew the guy that had put us into the building, and so we called him and asked him if he could come and administer to him. He did. He came, and he said, I'll pick up. And he picked up the other missionary, and that we didn't even know yet, so it was just a few days. So they came and administered to him, and his pain just left, and he never had it again. So we didn't go home, but he had made us promise that we would come home in January, and he wanted to check him again. So we flew home in January. We went up to Dr. Archibald's office, and he said, okay, I want to schedule this, So because he said, I've been studying it, and I found out a way that I think I can get this stone out. I said, oh, what if it isn't there? And he said, it's there. And so we went back home, and they took the tests and everything to get the location and everything again. Right before he had the operation, they x-rayed him again, a day or 2 before. And it was gone. He came in, he said, it's gone. I said, I told you. Maybe it would be because he said as soon as they laid their hands on him and asked for that to be gone, the pain to stop, he said it just stopped instantly. And he didn't ever have that pain again, ever, and that was we got there July 4th, and then it was January when we went back, so. And he had a lot of them that way. He was always getting a blessing because he was sick, and then we would go. He had a lot of faith. I guess it all stemmed from when he was a little boy, from the ear, when his ears quit. But he'd say, Lajean, I can't go. We'd have plane tickets and everything. You'll have to go without me, and it'd be to a wedding or to a kid's graduation or something. I say, oh, I won't leave you if you're sick. We just gotta go. So we decide, well, let's call. Dick Jensen was one that we called that was our home teacher, and he's a really good friend. Like at 7 in the morning or 6 in the morning, because we were leaving to go to the airport that morning, we would be. And he'd come and give him a blessing, and away we'd go. But see, his dad was that way. He had that same faith, and it just carried over. I love being in the temple every day. Washington, D.C. temple is not busy, and they don't have a lot of missionaries. And so every day you had a different assignment, and which was hard because you wouldn't know till you got there, what your assignments were going to be. And they had different people in charge every day as the missionaries. I just loved it because it made my faith grow so much. At one time I was over the initiatory, and I was lucky if I had one person to help me. And people would come in all the time and say, can we do initiatory today? And I'd say, yes, just sit down and wait a minute and someone will come. And that's what we do. And it happened at the Veil, it happened everywhere in the temple. And they'd say, oh, thank you, because I have been 2 or 3 times I haven't been able to do it because there wasn't enough help. But we do that, and there was always never hardly more than 2 of us in initiatory. We just didn't have enough help. They need workers so bad because they don't have any of the saints there, and it's so hard to get anywhere. They never had appointments for weddings or anything because they just had to. They might have the day, but not the time. They'd do them whenever they came. You just built your faith. It just built my faith so much. And then I got to be over ceilings. Saturday nights we were over the baptistry, the 2 of us together. Every Saturday night we were there, and there'd be the 2 of us and a secretary. And they'd bring loads of buses in every Saturday. And we always had the presidency, one of the presidency there, to give a talk to them. We heard wonderful talks every Saturday from one of the presidency. And then we just did everything. And then the weeks that we we did that every other week. And the other week, then we'd just be on, the Saturday we'd be on doing anything. And sometimes we were doing the dishes and stuff like that and cleaning all the pans. I hated it so bad, that job, because Saturday night at the cafeteria was way hard. And then finally they closed it, and the kids, they didn't have enough. You never got a lunch hour at the DC temple. So you brought a bar or something, a protein bar, and you just grabbed it. You never had a lunch break. Only you just did it whenever you could. And then on the weekends, it was a wonderful place to go. And well, our whole sacrament meeting was just the missionaries. That was all. I mean, just us from the temple missionaries. And we had family home meeting together. I mean, we all got so close. When we left things. Everyone came with just a suitcase, so we had just our clothes, and we'd go to the DI or we'd get from each other, and we always were eating together, and it was so fun. I just loved it. We got so close. We still meet together, some of us, to go to the temple, once a month on Tuesday, but I didn't get to go for a while because I was in St. George anyway, and they travel to all the temples. Just a greater testimony. I knew Heavenly Father was there helping us all the time, because people had turned up to help us when we needed. In any situation. It was hard because you were working all the time, but it was really, really rewarding. And then we had the best president in the whole world. President Hammond, and his wife was just, even when we left the temple, before we left, and I'm sure they did this with everybody. We happened to be the only ones leaving when we left, but she made pie and had the recorder, LJ and I, and he and her. They just made you feel so special. I've been with others that I really, really like them all, but I've never felt like the closeness. I still just, they were happening all the time. And you just knew that pretty soon you just knew. If you say, okay, just sit down and wait, someone will come to help us. And someone will come in and say, do you need help? Yeah, I do. Thank you. Well, they told him when he first of all, he got mycosis fungoides, which is a non-Hodgkin's. We thought he went to the hospital for appendicitis, and they found another growth, and that was a carcinoid cancer. And they took out a big chunk of his intestine, about 2 feet of it, and it was full of the seeds. And I said, oh my gosh. Well, he was in the hospital 2 months. They operated on him. Then he got a fistula. He just had problem after problem. He was there for a couple of months. And I said, oh, what about this carcinoid cancer with all these seeds in there? And they said, the non-Hodgkin's will take him before that. You'll never have to worry about that. Every time we get better, we go on a trip. Good enough to go. I know he went not feeling good sometimes. As soon as he got the cancer, we went to Israel. Then we went to Africa on a safari. We just did everything we could, and he just kept living on. And his doctor told me, "You're keeping him alive." He kept, and because I said, "Yeah, I can't do it without him." And he'd say, "What will my wife do without me if I, But I could get along, but I didn't like to be alone. I never have liked to be alone. But I've done fine even since he died. A lot better than I thought I would. But that was just, the way it was. He always said that he knew that he picked me out in heaven. He always said that, I know that we were supposed to get married. I know we were. And I'd say, and later I thought, well, maybe so, because we sure got along good. We did have a good marriage. I was very fortunate.
Do you want me to tell you about the children a little bit? And then you can too, LJ. We have 4. Linda is our only girl, and she was first. And that was such a happy, happy, happy day when she was born, because LJ has all brothers and I had all brothers. So we were really, really happy to get a little girl. And he found out about it from me being so excited. They didn't used to let the fathers in, but my mom and dad and LJ were all standing by the door, and they heard me say it's a girl, and I just couldn't have been more thrilled to have a little girl. And that's the only one we got. We got 3 boys, which we were all plenty happy when each of them were born too. And Linda lives in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, and she has 6 children. She's married to Jerry Schwegler, and they're just doing really good. And we just love all our kids and our grandchildren. And we felt so bad when they moved from Salt Lake to Oklahoma because she had all the grandchildren. And then John, he's our second, and he has one boy, Tyler, and he's an attorney here in town. And he's had quite a life. He's a neat guy, and we're thankful for him. And then we have Mark, and he's always been kind of was a sunshine boy. He's always been, he was fun to raise, and he's married to Jackie, and they have 4 boys, and she's due in January, and she's, well, I don't know if they're hoping for a girl or not. The kids think that you ought to be able to choose the 4-year-old, and he thinks it ought to be a girl. And we all think it would be nice, but we'll be really, really happy to have a little boy. We're just excited to get another baby in our family because it's been 4 years, so we're anxious for that. And then we have Robert, and he's married to Amy, and they have 3 children. Madison, Brianne, and Bronson. And we just enjoy their kids a lot and get to see them more often because they're closer by. They live in Riverdale, and he has the pawn shop in Riverdale, and he's also a bondsman. And Mark makes lots of loans and stuff too, and real estate. And LJ has always done real estate and had rentals and things, and that's how he really accumulated enough money to lend to anybody to start the pawn shops. And we just, our children and our grandchildren are just our lives. We just love them. That's our enjoyment is from our family. We just really love to be around them. And I don't know, I should have told you that Linda's children are Craig, and he just got married. So we just had our first grandchild get married, and he's our oldest one. And he just graduated from college in Oklahoma at Telequan. I can't remember the name of the college. Do you, LJ?
I don't.
And he has a sister, Kristen, who's in college. She'll be graduating next year, and a brother, Michael, that will be graduating next year also. Kristen and Michael are just 10 months apart, and they've always been close. And Kristen was our first granddaughter and second grandchild, and we're happy to get her. And then we have Sean and Scott and Michelle from that family. We have 4 granddaughters altogether and 10 grandsons, so we're a little long on grandsons. And then Mark's children are Josh, who has his 13th birthday today, and then they have Zachary and gosh, cut this. Cade and Jackson. Oh my word.
You said Josh, I guess?
Josh's birthday's today, and he's 13. We're all going out tonight and celebrate, and going to dinner with all of the kids and family. And then we're going to see the Scrooge at the Playhouse.
Grandchildren are great, and daughter-in-laws and son-in-laws. I talk to my friends, and they're always complaining about their daughter-in-laws and their son-in-laws, and she did that and he did this, and what a terrible choice their kids made on I love my daughter-in-laws and
Son-in-law.
son-in-laws as much as I do my children. They're just wonderful. I think they did such a great job. They did as well as I did in choosing a mate. I've got the best daughter-in-laws and son-in-law you could ever expect to have.
Yeah, we do feel that way. We
It's
say
really
every
great.
day how fortunate we are that our kids chose who they chose.
If you could have one more day with him, what would you want to do?
Probably just get the whole family together and have a big party. Probably what I'd want to do. I just say I love you, LJ. I'm so happy that we were married and I had such a sweet husband. I'd say, I know he would say he wants to have an eternal family. I mean, he prayed for that every blessing even. That all of our family could be together. I just want us all to be together in heaven, and I just have a testimony that somehow it's going to happen. Eternity's a long time, and we have that promise, which if we keep our covenants, that someday we'll have all of our children, and they may have to go through trials and tribulations and the buffetings of Satan, but we will have them. And so we've always felt like we try to be the very best we could no matter what. So that's the only promise that you have your kids, but you don't know. But I've been really fortunate. I have really good kids. They're not all really religious, but they're all very good individuals and very good. I love all of you so very much. Linda, you've been just such a wonderful daughter and so supportive and always saying lovely things to us and sending us lovely cards and just making us feel like that you love us and you're so happy for the support we've given you. And John, you're just a good person too, and love you and just want you in heaven with me. If I make it, I want you there too. And Mark, I just love you so much, and you were just our perfect son, and I know you've had your trials and you're probably going through a lot of them right now, but I want you to know that you just always have been a good person, and I love you very much. And you told me once in a card, I just looked at my last Mother's Day card and you said, "Mother, I know you love me," and that means so much. And that means a lot to me. I'm glad I've got your sweet cards and your words you said to me and things you sent. And Robert, you're just a kind person. I don't know how to do without you. You're my baby, and I just rely on you a lot too, and you've been so good to me since your father died. And John, you have too, and Linda, all of you. And I've got some really neat spouses too that I just love so much. We just have a wonderful family, and all the grandchildren. I just love all of you so much. You're just like my kids. You're part of me. I think to build our testimony, we have to do the things that we're told. I mean, a testimony can die. It does all the time. Many people leave the church all the time. You have to just keep saying your prayers and reading the scriptures and being kind and good and go to church and take the sacrament. It's really important to go and take the sacrament every week. That's just renewing your covenants of baptism, and that's very important. Keep you just thinking and just being around the right people. Make your friends that you just have acquaintances that help you a lot. We all have that. I mean, your dad and I have had family and acquaintances that have just been like your dad's been. LJ was in 5 bishoprics, 2 in Weber State, and then 2 in different wards, and then bishop. And those are our very best friends. Because you like the same things, you do the same things. So you usually, if you find people that you enjoy, that's why. And you need to seek people that you know Heavenly Father would want you to be with, and that will help your testimony grow. And you just have to keep at it every day. You just have to keep being sincere and in your feelings and keeping your covenants and doing the things that you need to do, or you can lose your testimony. And so and we just all want to be together because I love being with family. I love all of you so much. That's what I know your dad does too. We just want to be an eternal family.
Some of the greatest experiences I've had in my life have been involved with church work. And if you miss out on that, you've missed a great part of life and a great part of living and a great part of understanding what life is all about. And the church, the testimony I have of it is the most valuable possession that I own, and one that I hope that I'll be able to take with me when I go. But you have to be careful, because I've seen some great testimonies shaken and destroyed because of the people who had that testimony not obeying the laws of God and taking advantage of what's here and what's offered to us from our Father in heaven that brings happiness to us. It's just nice to know that just down the street, 30 miles, is a prophet of God, and I know he's a prophet. And I hope all my grandchildren do, and my children, because that's the most important knowledge, some of the most that they can have. And then Jesus is Christ. He really did live, and he died for us, and I know that.
My mom was petite. She was 5 feet 1 inch tall with dark brown hair, and she loved to ride horses, and she wasn't afraid of snakes or mice or anything. So she kind of loved that growing up out there, I think. And my dad, he was from there too, from Upalco. He had been born in Altona, Utah, but he had moved to Upalco with his family, and they had bought a fruit farm there. I know he said she used to chase him with snakes, and he was real shy, and she was just kind of a lot of fun. She liked to play games and do stuff. My dad hadn't been raised in the church very much, and he got baptized in Upalco, but his dad didn't get baptized until he was in his 70s. He was active in the church because my mom was always real active in the church. And I remember one time they were both the young women and young men's presidents in the MIA. And this is kind of like what my mom was like. Anyway, we all dressed up. It was Halloween, and we all went, and everyone was trying to guess who everyone was, because everybody really went all out to dress up for Halloween, not to be known. And at the end of the night, there was one person that nobody knew who it was. And anyway, it was my mom. And she was dressed up like a hobo, and she sat in the corner, and the boys were wrestling with her, trying every way to find out who that was. They never did, so she got the prize. But she just loved to do that. And both of my folks, well, they were young when they got married. They were fun. And my dad always liked Halloween too, and he'd always dress up, make everyone come in and sing a song and everything before he'd give them a treat or make him do something. And Mom would go out with us kids, and she'd just go out and dress up, treat or treat. No one would know who she was. She just thought that was fun to do, so she did that. So she was a fun mom to have, and she was really caring. She always, and really nice to everybody. And she was kind of quiet, but yet she liked to have fun, and she just had lots of friends, and she liked to have a good time though, but she could be real quiet, and she didn't like to cry, and she didn't lose her temper, or, I had more of a temper, and she never really spanked us, but sometimes she'd give us a kick in the pants with the side of her foot. I remember that, and you knew you're in trouble. But anyway, she just always, well, when she had a lot of good lessons from her from her mother and her grandma, because her mother was always so kind and worried about everybody, and was always giving them stuff, and everyone would come to Grandma and tell her all their problems. And there was no doctors around, no telephones, no whatever, and so Grandpa and Grandma were just kind of like the ones they looked up to, and Grandpa was their doctor. He put in all their bones, and a problem had come to him, because it was out in the sticks so far. But anyway, she'd always want to help people, and Dad was always wanting us to go to, really was always concentrating on us going to school and getting a good education, because he only went to the 8th grade, and then he had to go to work. That's what they were doing then a lot. And so he always wanted us to do good in school, and she always wanted us to go to church and do good in church. So it was kind of a balance, and I thought they both succeeded really well, because we all three graduated from college, and we all three got married in the temple. And at one time, Noel, Dexter, and I were all working in the temple, in different temples. I was in Ogden, and Noel was in Las Vegas, and Dexter was in St. George. And it was all at one time, the three of us were all. They were real young when they got married, but I think they did a pretty good job with us. They taught us to work, and they were strict, and no meant no, and we never sassed either one of them back, ever. You just wouldn't do that. We just knew that wasn't the thing to do, and we always respected them.